All right, let's bring in Albert Breer, Monday morning quarterback, strategist, NFL senior reporter, covered the league since 2005. Albert Breer vacationing in the Northeast. How are you, man?
I'm good. How you doing, J-Mac?
Excellent. I was just bagging on the Buffalo Bills a little bit, and I didn't look at social media on purpose. I haven't done it yet during the show because I don't want to see what these jabronis are saying. But I see these comments about Josh Allen. The media is blowing the Stefon Diggs thing out of proportion. Albert, the coach said he was very concerned. One report said the coach sent Diggs home. Is this something? Is this nothing?
I think it's something. I don't think it's absolutely nothing, and it's something, whether it was a big deal internally or not, it's going to be a big deal now because all eyes are going to be on Stefon Diggs when they start training camp. All eyes are going to be on Stefon Diggs week one. You better believe CBS and Fox are going to have cameras trained on Diggs early in the season to see how he might react when things go wrong. And I mean, part of this, I think you talked about it before the break, J-Mac, is this is life in the big city. When you're this sort of team on this sort of pedestal and you've been winning for a few years and you haven't yet gotten to the championship, these are the things you have to deal with. And I think a lot of people in Buffalo, in that organization, would argue that they did go through a lot last year. They were displaced twice by the snowstorms. I know you and I have been through this before. They went through the supermarket shooting locally, which, they played a big hand in the recovery there. Obviously, the Damar Hamlin thing at the end of the year. So this is a team that's been through a lot, but I think it's sort of a window into where they are too, which is right smack in the middle of a championship window for the current group of players. And I think an increasing feeling that they've got to get it done soon.
Yeah, let's pivot to their week one opponent, the Jets. I just looked up Diggs' numbers. First of all, in that playoff game against the Bengals, 4 catches, 35 yards. He had no touchdowns against the Jets last year. They really locked him down. Sauce Gardner, superstar. Jets have a lot of arrows pointing up. They're closing in on the Bills. Dolphins, they're expected to be very good. Like, are we sure the Bills are still the class of the AFC East? And are the Jets closing in?
I think the Bills are the clear favorite. They've won it the last, 3 years in a row. And certainly I think if you look at like who's got the best top end talent, it's still Buffalo. Like, if you look at potentially a high end corner coming back. Now, I know he wasn't the same last year coming off the ACL, but Tre'Davious White is that type of player. Matt Milano, a premier linebacker, really good players up front. You hope you have Von Miller back from the ACL. And then, Ed Oliver just got the big deal. Deion Dawkins at left tackle. Like, that top level of players in Buffalo is still better than any team in the division. And I don't think it's particularly close. That said, a couple of things go wrong and that door can open. And I think now there are teams that are capable in the division of taking advantage of it. In New York, obviously a lot depends on how quickly Aaron Rodgers melds with everybody else that's already in house there. But they've got a good young team that was good enough to be 7-4 last year with virtually nothing at quarterback. And then Miami, of course, there's the big variable of whether or not Tua Tagovailoa can stay healthy. But they've got a pretty good young core too. Like guys like, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, who's, obviously a little bit older. And then on defense, you bring in Jalen Ramsey, you add him to Xavier Howard. So I think there are teams capable of challenging them in the East this year. But I still think if you look at it and if all teams are firing all cylinders, it's the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, that's fair. You touched on Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, an amazing duo. We're also seeing Robert Saleh under a lot of pressure. Not that different from McDermott. But, unfortunately, the last time the Jets had a coach, they brought in Brett Favre, it went sideways and everybody got dusted. Saleh's probably not thrilled about the Hard Knocks stuff. By the way, have you heard the latest on that? And how much pressure are the Jets under this year?
Well, I mean, clearly the NFL is having trouble finding somebody to fill the Hard Knocks slot. And they haven't in the past really had to push that button where they can use the rules to force somebody to do it. But there are 4 teams out there right now that the league could look at and say we can compel them to do it. The Saints, the Bears, the Commanders, and, of course, the Jets. And if you're NFL Films, which one do you want to see most? If you're looking at a brand that's died a little bit over the last couple of years in Hard Knocks, what would be one way to pump life into it? Throw in Aaron Rodgers on a new team in New York City into it, and you go. So you understand why HBO and NFL Films and the NFL itself would want to put the Jets in that spot if they can't find somebody to do it voluntarily. And, of course, they'd rather have a volunteer than a hostage when it comes to this. You can see why they'd want to do it. But, I think the Jets feeling on this is real, too. When Robert Saleh says, we don't want to do this, there's good reason for that. like they're going to be at full capacity media-wise to begin with. Day one of camp's going to be a circus there. The spring brought a lot more attention than they'd seen in years, and certainly during Salah's time there. And if you're the head coach there and you're trying to create some normalcy and build a team that can contend for a Super Bowl and take the spotlight off of certain guys in that locker room, well, inviting HBO and NFL Films, as great a job as they do, probably isn't the best way to do that. So I think you're going to continue to hear that the Jets don't want to do it, but certainly they're the team that the NFL would compel to do it if they can't find a volunteer. And remember, last year they announced the Lions coming in on March 28th. It's now July 5th. Is that right?
Yes.
So, like, the fact that it's July 5th and they don't have anything announced yet tells you they haven't found a volunteer yet.
Right. One more AFC East, a former NFL player. I'm not going to name him because I don't want to embarrass him. I don't agree with this take, but said that, Andy Reid can catch Belichick as the greatest head coach of all time. He's got Mahomes. They're rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know you're a New England guy. You covered a lot of Belichick. Belichick's safe here, right? Or can Reid legitimately have a chance at?
Let me ask you, just talking about the wins list, or are we talking about
I think just in general greatest? Yeah, this would be like a LeBron Jordan debate because LeBron doesn't have as many titles, but a lot of people think he's better.
I mean, so here's the thing. Like, let's say Mahomes. So Andy's 65. Let's say Mahomes and Andy get 4 together, right? And they go to 6. So now Andy's been to 7 Super Bowls. He got to 1 with another team. He was super competitive with another team. And I guess then you could make the argument, well, the only thing that happened with Andy Reid is time ran out on him. He got into an ideal situation older than Belichick did. Belichick got into an ideal situation in his late 40s. Andy was damn near 60 years old when he took that Kansas City job, right? So you could argue that the timing of it didn't work as well for Andy. But if you really want to compare the two, well, what went better, Andy Reid in Philadelphia or Bill Belichick in Cleveland? So I'm just playing devil's advocate here. But if you wanted to construct the argument, you could say Andy Reid's done it with multiple quarterbacks, with multiple franchises, with multiple owners in both conferences. You can make a strong argument there that Andy Reid, if he gets, again, maybe to 4 Super Bowl wins with Mahomes and he's halfway there, that you could make the argument that he should be right there with Belichick. I'd still say Belichick is the best ever. But, Andy Reid's got a fighting chance to be in that argument if he can win a couple.
Ooh, that's spicy. All right, let's go to the NFC real quick. So I have my 5 crazy predictions for the season coming up, and I know everybody's going to love it because that's what they do. I do have to ask, you look at the top of the NFC, Albert, top of the NFC, and it's Philadelphia lost both coordinators. Jalen Hurts has taken a lot of hits the last 2 years. His contract just spiked. There's a world where they maybe get knocked down a peg. After that, it could be chaos. San Fran doesn't know about QB1, and even if it's Brock Purdy, what is he, 7 wins? Come on. Again, we got Dallas, Detroit. It's a lot of weirdness. Is there a world where you see a team come out of nowhere, New Orleans Saints perhaps, and shock the world and get to a Super Bowl? Because last year at this time, not a lot of people were saying Eagles. It was like, Rams could get back. Cowboys, Packers with Aaron Rodgers. It was like the usual suspects. I'm trying to find an outsider here.
All right, so let's look at the strength of the Eagles, which I've always felt like the strength of the Eagles has been along the lines of scrimmage and their ability to develop young talent, right? I would agree that I think the Saints could be in that category if Derek Carr really gives them that boost at quarterback. Obviously, there's a sense of urgency with some older players in that roster. Guys like Marshawn Lattimore and Cam Jordan and Michael Thomas, if he can come back healthy, that'd be chasing a ring. The Saints do make sense, and they're in a really, really winnable division. I'm going to take you further west. I would say look at the Seattle Seahawks and look at where they are versus maybe where they were 12 years ago. And look at that rookie class coming back, right? And what they have in the 2 young tackles, which gives them strength up front, and Charles Cross and Abe Lucas. And they bring Kenneth Walker back. And then in the secondary, they got 2 young corners they really like coming back, and Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant. And they drafted Devin Witherspoon back there. And now they're adding Jackson Smith and Jigba to the receiver group. And they've got DK Metcalf. And you've got all these players in the roster that are in their early 20s, and they're still rising, and they're ascending, and they're getting better. And say San Francisco isn't what we thought they'd be because the quarterback situation is a little bit of a problem. And the Rams, are going through their reset year. So maybe now the NFC West is a little bit more winnable. Can you get yourself to a point where it's like, if Geno Smith can just tread water and be the same guy he was last year, maybe Seattle's not that far off from where they were 11, 12 years ago when they had those really great draft classes. Again, like if you look closely at the number of snaps played, the number of starts, all that different stuff that we saw from their 2022 draft class last year, you figure those guys are a year older now. You've got the 2 first-round picks coming in, and Devin Witherspoon and Jackson Smith and Jigba, in a draft class that has numbers. I think you can get yourself to a place pretty easily where you say, Seattle might have something cooking there in a very winnable conference.
Wow. So, someone here tried to sell me on Seattle. My instant reaction is no. Geno Smith is not doing that again.
Yeah,
but
Geno's the mental block, right? Yeah. Like that's the thing is like if you can get yourself to a place where, and I think Geno's done so much right over the last couple of years. And if you, I mean, like, look, like I'll tell you this, J-Mac, like when they got eliminated from the playoffs last year, he stayed in Seattle when all of his teammates left because he wanted to stay there and he wanted to have a season that would last as long as his Super Bowl team season would. So he did strength and conditioning work in Seattle before going back to Florida to go get more of his off-season stuff done. So like, I think Geno's got the right mentality. And if you can get to a place where you think he's going to tread water and be the same guy he was a year ago, they've got a lot of other things going on that roster where you could, I think, make an argument that they could be a real sleeper team in 2023.
All right, we got 30 seconds left real quick. If I gave you can have the Eagles and Chiefs or the field, who you got winning the Super Bowl?
I would say the field. I think too much of the Bengals. I think too much of the Bills. I think too much of the Niners. And it's hard to get back. So if you're saying, like, is it the Eagles or Chiefs or the other 30 teams, I'm going to go with the other 30 teams as much as I think of the Eagles and Chiefs.
I think I'm with you there. Albert Breer, the lead content strategist, MMQB, mandatory reading if you like the NFL, if you gamble, if you do fantasy. Thanks a lot, Albert. Enjoy the rest of the holiday week.
All right. Thanks, J-Mac.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.